All right, 7th grade, we're going to be going over the immune system for our last unit this year. With all of the unknown going on in the world with the coronavirus pandemic, I just thought it would be an appropriate end of the year. And I want to apologize ahead of time. My little baby Afia is playing next to me with a little crinkly book, so that's what you guys are hearing in the background. I hope it's not too distracting. All right, so let's continue. Okay, when you think of a defense system, what is some things that you think of? Now, normally I would give you guys a chance to brainstorm and I would write it on the board, but maybe I came up with a list that I think maybe you guys would say, and I wrote them down. So maybe you think a defense system is the military or a police department. Maybe you think it's detective strategies, like the way that detectives do things. That's a great example of a defense system. Divide and conquer is maybe something you would come up with. Quick strikes, maybe a variety of weaponry. So different types of weapons, fighting in the land, the air, and the sea. The element of surprise is a good one. And then bombing strategic locations. All of those are really good examples of defense systems and good parts of defense systems. Well, the immune system is actually a form of a defense system. I went ahead of myself here. And it relies on a lot of these techniques that you may be thought of, maybe different ones. It relies on these similar techniques to keep the body healthy and fight against infections. Okay, infectious diseases. The first thing we need to know is the difference between an infectious disease and a non-infectious disease. Okay, an infectious disease are caused by pathogens. If you've never heard of the word pathogen, it just means a bacteria, virus, or another microorganism that makes you sick. Okay, and we've learned about both viruses and bacteria, so you should have some sort of idea what that means. And infectious diseases is these pathogens that are passed from one person to another. A non-infectious disease is something that you cannot get from somebody else. An example might be cancer. You can't just get cancer from somebody else. It's caused by different reasons, but it's not caused by a pathogen that can be passed from one person to the next. Okay, so what are some infectious diseases that you might know about? Okay, I have some pictures here that represent some of those diseases. I'm going to give you a list of them, and if you have any others, then that would be great too. We have typhoid fever, smallpox, measles, bubonic plague, and botulism. Maybe you've heard of these, maybe you haven't, but these are some that have really caused havoc on our society before. But now they're not that big of a deal anymore, because we've figured out vaccinations and things like that. Also chicken pox. Here's a picture of chicken pox and measles up here. Cholera, diphtheria, influenza we've recently learned about. Okay, so these are some different types of infectious diseases. This is one of the old masks that they used to wear actually during the bubonic plague when people were dying. These is what the nurses and the doctors would wear so they didn't get sick. So I'm glad that instead of wearing that these days, we're wearing very small masks. But this has been going on forever. I mean, people have been getting sick, people have been dying, and it's really sad, but the great thing is God has designed our bodies to fight these infections. So let's learn more about that, okay? Oh, hepatitis is one as well. Hepatitis affects the liver down here, okay? All right, so the novel virus of the day, the novel means the big thing of the day. You guys all probably know much about it, at least the name of it, is the coronavirus, okay? Also known as COVID-19, also known as SARS-CoV-2. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one, but the coronavirus for sure you've probably heard of. COVID-19 probably, okay? So why is it called a coronavirus? A coronavirus, this is not the only coronavirus that has ever happened. There are other coronaviruses, okay? This coronavirus, the reason why it's called a coronavirus is because of its shape. This is the shape of a coronavirus here, okay? It's kind of like a sphere, okay? So it's called a coronavirus because of its shape. COVID-19 is actually the name of the disease that's going on today, okay? And it actually makes sense why it's called COVID-19. Co is coronavirus, or COV, I guess, corona, V is virus, VI is virus, and then D is disease, so coronavirus disease. 19, the reason why it's 19 is because it started in December of 2019, okay? So it's pretty simple the way they named it. SARS-CoV-3 is actually the name of the virus strain. It's 2, sorry I said 3, but it's 2. It's the second SARS coronavirus, okay? So there has been a SARS virus before, and it was SARS-CoV-1. This is SARS-CoV-2. It's the second one that is very similar to this, okay? All right, we're not going to learn only about the coronavirus. I just wanted to mention it before we move on. We'll have some more time to learn about it in a different day, but we're going to just jump into the immune system. Actually, before we do that, I think it's important to go to God's Word first. We're going to spend a few minutes on this slide, so just make sure your listening ears are turned on, okay? I don't want to minimize getting sick or diseases or anything like that, because it really is hard to get sick, and it's hard when people are dying. It's really sad what's going on. But the truth is that we don't actually wrestle against flesh and blood. This is the verse. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood. But we are against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Okay, these rulers and authorities and powers are not talking about anything of this world. Okay, flesh and blood means humans, anything that is on this world. Okay, it's talking about something else. When Jesus was on earth, we all know stories about him healing sick people and diseased people. He raised people from the dead and he fed thousands of people, right? We've all know those miracles. And all these things are really important. But you know what the most important thing was that he did when he was here? That he was able to heal people spiritually. Okay, healing people physically is awesome, but the most important thing is your spirit. He had the power to forgive sins, and then he went on, we know, to pay the ultimate price for our sins and provide a way for us to be with him forever. So what does this verse mean then in the context of what Jesus did for us? That our biggest struggle is not against people, it's not against the president, it's not against disease, it's not against any person that has ever lived, whether they're our enemy here on earth or not. It's against Satan and his evil spirits, okay? Satan is out to kill, to steal, and destroy. But you know what? The way that I see it is he can take my money, he can take my health, and he can even take my family. But you know what he can never do? Is take away my salvation. He can never, ever, ever separate me from the love of God. And it's the same for each one of you, okay? So I just want to encourage us that as we go through this unit, this is a very confusing time. So as we go through this unit, as we go through this time, and even the rest of our lives, because I promise there's always going to be something that seems like our enemy, let's remember that Satan is our true enemy. But here's the hope. Jesus has already defeated him on the cross, so we can walk in confidence because we have victory within us. Okay? All right. So we're going to move on, but just remember, Jesus has victory, and we have victory because we have Jesus. Okay? No matter what, we have victory. All right? There is hope. Okay. We're just going to learn a little bit about the immune system today. There's three, actually I've divided this up into 3 sections, so we're not doing PowerPoints for 45 minutes, okay? So we're going to learn a little bit about the immune system today, and then we're going to continue on learning about it throughout the rest of the month, or until the end of school, actually, okay? So the immune system is something that God designed for your body to keep you healthy and to heal you once you've become sick. Okay, it's not located in any one part of your body. Actually, the immune system is everywhere in your body. There's lots of different areas your immune system is located, and we're going to talk about some of them. It's an army of cells. It really is an army. Cells, tissues, and organs that band together to fight against any pathogens that try to invade. And again, pathogens are microorganisms that cause disease. Okay. All right. Now we have a first line of defense. Okay. And the first line of defense is composed of three different things. Our skin, which is a physical barrier to invaders. So invaders that try to get in first, they'll try to get in through our skin, and a lot of times they cannot get in through our skin. The top layer of skin is actually dead cells, which many of you probably know, but actually this helps prevent pathogens from infecting. Because when your dead cells flake off your skin, they actually probably have viruses and bacteria that have landed on it that also flakes off with your dead skin. Now, viruses and bacteria, they need living cells to actually do any harm. So because your skin is dead cells on the first layer is really helpful. And they also your skin also produces chemicals to protect the body. There's two examples of chemicals. Lysozyme is actually an enzyme. That's why it ends in zyme. Okay, it's an enzyme that is found in tears, sweat, saliva, and nasal secretions. And it actually kills bacteria by breaking their membranes apart, the cell membranes, if you guys remember what that is. Okay, sebum is a chemical that contains acid, and it kills microorganisms or it keeps them from growing. Okay, so that's skin. We also have mucus. Funneled mucus, we all know what that is. It's a sticky substance. It lines the membranes inside the mouth, the nose, and other channels that are open to the outside of the body. And its function is to trap microorganisms as they enter the body. Okay, once they do that, then they can be digested and they don't harm the body. So skin and mucus, very important. There's one more in the first line of defense, and it's called platelets. Okay, platelets are actually blood cell fragments. They're not whole cells, they're pieces of blood cells, but what they do is they help seal open wounds. So if you get an open wound, to prevent infection, they go to the side of the wound and they seal the open wounds. They're really helpful. Okay, and that's kind of what that was saying. So we have skin, mucus, and platelets that are in our first line of defense. Now what happens if they get past our first line of defense, which sometimes they do? Then the lymphatic system kicks in, okay? The lymphatic system is composed of multiple different organs, cells, and tissues, okay? We're just going to introduce it today, and then you'll learn more about it on Wednesday and the days to come, okay? So the job of the system is to carry the bacteria and other foreign invaders from the body's tissues and blood. We don't want them to harm our body, okay? So first we have lymphatic, okay? Lymph is a clear or yellowish liquid that contains special white blood cells. Now, you've probably heard the white blood cells are your immune cells. That is true, okay? So it's a clear fluid or yellow that contains white blood cells. And this is your lymph vessels, the green vessels. They kind of look like blood vessels. Well, they're not blood in there. They're actually lymph. Lymph is flowing through those vessels. Okay, and then we have lymph nodes. And lymph nodes, as you can see here, lymph glands are the same as lymph nodes. Okay, the glands are in the nodes. And they're little organs. You have lymph nodes in your groin, in your armpits on both sides, and then also in your neck. Okay. And you probably know that sometimes when you get sick, your lymph nodes, especially in your neck, get swollen. That's because white blood cells are actually produced and they swell around those nodes, okay? So they reproduce, they multiply very, very fast, and so the lymph nodes begin to swell and sometimes become painful, but actually it's your immune system is trying to start to fight the disease, and we'll get into that a little bit more next week. But so here is the different parts. We have lymph nodes, white blood cells, okay? All right, finally, the last three organs we're going to talk about today are the thymus gland, and here are some pictures. The thymus gland is right here in your throat, okay? And what that does is it produces and processes white blood cells called T cells. T cells are very important. Okay, we're going to talk more about them another day, but just know that the thymus gland is what produces the T cells. Okay, they're actually made, or they process the T cells. They're not made in the thymus, sorry. They're processed by the thymus gland, but they're made in the bone marrow. Okay, so inside your bones is something called bone marrow, and it produces these T cells. And the T cells are really smart cells. They determine what kind of response they need to do. Okay, then you have here, maybe some of you know what this organ is. It's kind of above, this is the stomach, and it's kind of above and behind the stomach. This is called your spleen. Okay, some people get your spleens removed and you can still live without them, but they are helpful. They actually are kind of a blood filter. Okay, so kidneys are kind of a filter. The spleen is also a sort of filter. It's a large blood filter. Okay, so as the blood goes through the spleen, the white blood cells there attack foreign substances and destroy old red blood cells. The way that it works is there's really small capillaries, which are small blood vessels. And when the cells squeeze through them, the old red blood cells rupture because they're so old and it's time for them to be recycled and renewed and things like that. Okay? Lastly, we have the tonsils. Okay? The tonsils are right here in your neck. Okay? And the tonsils are masses of lymphatic tissue located at the back of the throat. Okay? It's basically just a big glob of tissue, but they are important because what happens is the white blood cells in the tonsils defend against infection before anything goes down your throat. Now, sometimes they do, and then you end up getting sick, but what they try to do, the tonsils first, is stop it before it goes down. Okay? All right. So we're actually going to pause there. We're going to continue on the steps of the different immune response as we go. I hope I didn't go too fast. If I did, thankfully you can go back and rewind. But so as a review, today we learned that the immune system is a defense system. We learned that we don't have to be afraid of disease because Jesus has victory. And even if we do get sick and if bad things happen, our enemy is not the disease. It's actually Satan. But the hope is that Jesus has defeated Satan. We learned that the immune system is a system throughout our whole body, that we have a first line of defense, and that first line of defense is skin, mucus, and platelets. But if it does get past the first line of defense, then we do have a lymphatic system that basically goes to war, and it fights the infection. So we're going to learn more about the steps of how the infection is fought next week. But we learned about different organs, which are here on this slide: the thymus gland, the spleen, and the tonsils. All right.